This is the story of how a handful of Americans waged the first real war of the new millennium, and how the technology they brought to bear
Roger, I copy 2 F-16s.
is now being transformed in preparation for the coming battles. American commandos Jason Amarine and Calvin Markham will be 2 of the first Americans to hit the ground in Afghanistan. Deep behind enemy lines, these 21st century warriors will put to test a handful of new weapons and tactics that might signal the coming of an evolution in warfare itself. Unknown to the American public, Jason Amarine and Special Ops Team 574 have been training in the region since July, 6 weeks before the 9/11 attacks. Their familiarity with Afghani languages and culture will prove crucial in the weeks to come. Of the 8 American commando teams initially sent to infiltrate Afghanistan, Amarine's Team 574 is the only unit sent south, deep behind enemy lines. Theirs is the toughest mission of all: to mobilize a rebel army in the Taliban heartland and then capture Kandahar itself. Within hours of getting their orders, Team 574 is ready. Under cover of darkness, Jason and his men board 2 helicopters from the 160th Special Operations Aviation Regiment, a clandestine unit that flies covert missions into the most violent places on Earth. Secrecy has been crucial. Most know nothing of their destination or objective until the eve of battle. 2 months after the attack on America, 574's 9 Green Berets and a lone Air Force combat controller set out to strike at the heart of Al-Qaeda and at the Afghan Taliban regime that has provided the terrorists refuge. This is the first marriage of Air Force combat controllers with Special Forces A-teams.
Weapon away.
United States Air Force Combat Controller Tech Sergeant Calvin Markham has been in Afghanistan since October 19th. Assigned to Special Forces Team 555, he is the prototype 21st century warrior, spearheading the high-tech attack on the Taliban's northern armies.
We provide the air-to-ground interface to a team. Target coordinates are as follows.
Could you repeat that?
We talk to the aircraft. And Corvette 33, be advised, target is heavy artillery piece, and we put the bombs on the target. Weapon away. Ooh, Corvette 33, shack on target. Shack on target. Target destroyed, cleared for immediate re-attack.
Combat controllers rely on radios, global positioning systems, and laser target designators.
As a combat controller on the ground, basically I'm the AT&T operator. I can reach out and touch just about anybody I need to. One of the things you want to do is positively identify your targets, because if you don't, you're ultimately responsible for it. By bouncing a laser beam off the target and it reads back into the piece of equipment, it'll tell you how far it is. Using your GPS, something as simple as this, you have your known location, you can project a waypoint. Basically what you're doing is you're putting in the distance and the direction from your location to that target, and that'll give you the target coordinates.
Markham and his fellow controllers are given $3,000 government-issued GPS devices, but they are heavy and devour battery power. Calvin and others opt instead for $250 store-bought handhelds that weigh a fraction as much and run for months on a single charge. In synchrony, pilot and combat controller unleash their payload with devastating accuracy.
With the laser target designator, we were putting bombs right in front doors of bunkers. command and control structures, right on top of artillery pieces, on mortar pieces, right into the center of a fighting position. So it's pretty accurate.
While the war in the north is well underway, in the south, Team 574's odyssey is just beginning. In the dark Afghani night, their special ops choppers hug the terrain, barely 100 feet off the ground, hitting speeds in excess of 180 miles per hour. Suddenly, the night erupts with the explosions of incoming rocket-propelled grenades.
The helicopter made some wild evasive maneuvers, and it really scared us all in the back. We were wondering just how bad a flight this was going to be.
Team 574 gets an explosive welcome to Afghanistan. The pilots veer out of the barrage, quickly drop off the men, and disappear into the night. Karzai's rebels run for their trucks. Jason and his men are forced to follow. The next wave of pilots launched from carriers in the Indian Ocean does not miss. 2 direct hits and the desert ignites. But Team 574 has lost valuable territory. With Karzai's help, Jason and his men regroup and fall back to a position dangerously close to town.
I wasn't quite sure at that point whether we're going to hold the town, but I knew that we were going to put up a hell of a fight.
With pinpoint accuracy, Team 574's combat controller calmly calls in strike after strike, decimating the Taliban convoy.
We basically had destroyed more Taliban in that first day than the Northern Alliance had destroyed all year.
Astonished villagers rejoice in the streets. Karzai and Team 574 are new heroes. As word of the victory spreads, Taliban defectors swell the ranks of Karzai's rebel army. Ahead lies the final prize, Kandahar, the spiritual capital of the Taliban, and perhaps the final refuge of Osama bin Laden himself. On November 13th, 2001, the men of Special Forces Team 555 and combat controller Calvin Markham make history. After 5 years of Taliban rule, Kabul is liberated.
To get into Kabul and see the children was incredible. To see that we had freed them from the suppression of the Taliban, to have families, to have women and children and old men come up to us and thank you. I mean, we gave their freedom back to them, and whatever comes of their government, you know, we know that we were able to give them their initial freedom. Our team was given the opportunity to go in and help clear the U.S. Embassy in Kabul. The Taliban had vandalized, they had occupied the U.S. Embassy for about 3 days, we were told. And so we were clearing it for any type of booby traps or any type of chemicals or anything that may have been in there.
A Taliban delegation is on its way to surrender.
Suddenly we're back in the United States. Only, half the team is maimed or dead, and the other half of us are sort of still in shock about the whole thing. I sat there and cried my eyes out.
This is kind of sad because I've lost some teammates over there. And they all had young wives and young kids, so it almost seems selfish that I was able to return fine and they weren't. So this is kind of a sad thing.